You can't cheat those numbers. You can't cheat Vo2 Max.
Power in the pedals, power in the pedals.
You doing this test proves,
Right, going up.
look, this stuff, you take it 2 weeks,
Keep working, keep working.
it's gonna work.
Nice work, nice work, nice work. Way to go, way to go, way to go.
So just tell us what products you're taking.
Yeah, so I had a minor surgery for a deviated septum, and so I got off the products. I was on Extreme Endurance, Immune, and our Omega, and I haven't been off Extreme Endurance for probably 5 to 6 years. Got off those products for 3 weeks. Came in here on that 3rd week and tested the Vo2 Max. Got back on the supplements, Extreme Endurance, 3 in the morning, 3 at night. Immune Boost, 3 in the morning, 3 at night. And then Omega, 1 in the morning, 1 at night for 2 weeks. So it's been 14 days. Came back and it tested my Vo2 Max and along with some other numbers, and I'm kind of blown away.
My name is Anna Sparks. I own Spark Systems. We are a health and performance coaching company that is differentiated by our utilization of metabolic testing as a baseline measurement in order to put together proper nutrition, movement, and breathing plans for clients. What we just did with Jason was we actually did a resting metabolic test, was the first test we started with. And then we moved him into an active metabolic test on the bike. What we're looking at is we're measuring his expired gases. So we're measuring the amount of oxygen he's taking in versus the amount of CO2 that he is breathing out. In order to become what we call metabolically efficient, we actually want him to utilize higher amounts of fat for fuel than carbohydrate, right? And so we're gonna look at these numbers, and again, we're measuring breath by breath gas exchange in order to see what his RQ values are. And we're gonna gather it over 10 to 15 minutes. And again, it's just, he hasn't eaten anything, he hasn't done any exercise, so this is just what he's utilizing for fuel at a rested state. Bike, and we'll do his active metabolic test. So what it's gonna be like for him is that it's like he's warming up, heading over to a climb, and it's just I'll increase the intensity on the bike, so I'll increase the wattage on the bike, and it's gonna feel like he's just starting to climb. And so it's gonna be pretty easy in the beginning, he'll be fine, and then as we progress along, it's gonna start to get harder and harder, and then by the end, he'll be at a maxed effort. In every stage, I'm gonna ask you to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how you're feeling, so that rating to perceived exertion. You'll show me on your hand, so a 1 would mean this is easy, I can do this all day. A 10 would mean I'm tapped, I'm not gonna be able to go much longer, okay? All the resistance coming off. You can keep pedaling. Pedal as slow as you want now. You dying in this thing, pretty much.
It makes you a little claustrophobic.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
That hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel like it was my lungs, my legs were done.
Well, and also, I mean, like, I don't know training-wise what you...
I worked out 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah, so...
Because of that surgery. I wasn't allowed to. I met Anna, I guess years ago, and we just reconnected via Zoom a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize the extensive research that she did. A volunteer asked if I could do a test based on not being on our products, and then I'm gonna get on them for a week, and then we're gonna retest and kind of see where I'm at. But it's really good to see someone like me who's not a professional athlete. You know, I work every day, I'm a father, you know, I probably don't get adequate sleep. You know, my diet's probably not on point, and she has such precise like technology to show what I need to do to maximize like my body's potential. And so then we'll go back in 7 days, and after being on the supplements, especially Extreme Endurance, and see where I'm at. At Xendurance, you know, our mission is to teach what she's teaching, except she's like just laser focuses on those numbers where, you know, we don't have that ability, but we want to teach people those three things, which is clean eating, moving our bodies, so exercise, and then supplementation from what we're missing in our diets. So yeah, overall, that was really, really cool to see. I'm interested to see what it looked like in 7 days.
You don't change anything, breathe is normal, you're getting in as much oxygen as you would be without that mask on, all right? So just stay calm. If at any time you start to feel nauseous or lightheaded, just stop pedaling and I'll take the mask off of you. Way to push. 15 seconds left in the stage, come on. A little bit forward, let's go. You got it. Good job.
I think that mask made me anxious today. I had a lot more to give this time though.
You did?
Yeah.
What could you compare the last 30 seconds to of that test?
Well, it wouldn't be the last 30 seconds, it's probably the last 2 minutes. I think I remember hitting around 260 last time where I was completely dead like I was at 310. I felt like I had an extra gear at 260 or 280, whatever it was. And I was able to maintain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was able to kick another gear but maintain and not feel like I was burning out, you know? Definitely felt I had a lot more today though, for sure.
How did everything else go?
I felt
How
stronger.
did, like, your power, like?
Yeah, I felt stronger at the end. I felt a little anxious in the beginning. When she said I hit my threshold, I was like, I feel like I'm just getting started.
Right.
And so that's where I got a little anxious, but then just like got a rhythm with my breathing, and my legs didn't burn as bad as they did last time. So I was able to maintain that threshold for, it seems like a lot longer than last time. We'll see.
Yeah.
I feel good though. I feel like I'm recovering faster too.
Do you feel like
Last time I remember walking out of here a little wobbly. Diet was the same, only thing we changed was adding the supplements.
The first time we tested him, we did the same exact protocol, same exact layout, same exact pre-testing instructions, everything. But Jason had been off of all of the Xendurance products for, I believe, 3 weeks. And then we did all of his baseline measurements. And then now it's 2 weeks later. He added back in the products. And then we did some retesting today. He was pretty efficient, especially at rest. It was surprising too, after asking him what his daily nutrition, what it was like, and he really doesn't really do many animal products. And so I was surprised to see that his metabolic efficiency and his reliance on utilizing his internal fat stores for fuel was as high as it was. But it actually, once he got back on these products, you know, it seems to be that it's gotten even better.
How do you feel like the test went today?
You know, I was actually, when he walked in, I asked him how he's been feeling, and he said that he was actually really tired today. And so I kind of thought, well, I'm not sure that we're gonna see the same kind of numbers that we saw, because I was pretty impressed with how he did the first time that he came in. He said I didn't change anything nutritionally. I didn't do as much cardio and actually started doing a little bit more resistive training. And then I added back in some of the Xendurance products. He actually did very, very well. Now looking at his data, he improved pretty much across the board in all areas. The first point that we'll look at would be his metabolic efficiency point. And that's gonna be the point in which the intensity or heart rate in which he changes over from utilizing mainly fat for fuel to utilizing carbohydrate. And so when I look at his graph, what this is showing me is this blue line right here is going to be his fat utilization, and then this red dotted line is going to be his carbohydrate utilization. Down along the bottom, you're going to see his heart rates. Along this axis, we're going to see the calories used. And then these columns back here are actually his respiratory rate. And so as you can see that there were times, actually he kind of started even talking at this point and his respiratory rate went up. But you can see it's just a gradual increase over time. So right where these two lines will intersect, and his actually intersected and stayed kind of together for a little bit, but then there was a distinct separation where glycogen took over as its predominant fuel source, and fat utilization, you can see, just drops off. Right? So at 150 beats per minute right now, that is his metabolic efficiency point. So that is going to be the point, again, in which basically his reliance on fat for fuel begins to drop off and his reliance on carbohydrate or glycogen begins to increase. And as his intensities get higher, you can see that reliance on carbohydrate just continues to go up. So last time when he was testing, his metabolic efficiency point was 131 beats per minute. So he's increased that to 150 beats per minute this time. But also you can see that he reached that metabolic efficiency point at 131 beats per minute last time at 100 watts. So that means 100 watts of resistance on the bike. And this time now he's at 150 beats per minute at 130 watts. So we gained even 30 more watts of power as well. But our main goal for metabolic efficiency with that graph is to move that MEP to the right and have him achieve it at higher intensity, because his body is actually able to utilize his internal, all the stored energy that he has on board. He's actually able to tap into that during exercise. So what this is showing, that right now he could go out and exercise at or below 150 beats per minute, and his primary fuel source is going to be his internal fat stores. Okay, so the next number that we look at was that aerobic threshold. And we can see that even in the last couple of weeks, he was really focused more on a little bit more lower intensity with just doing the strength training. He wasn't doing a lot of high intensity work. And so even though his aerobic threshold, the heart rate increased, so he went from 165 beats per minute to 167 beats per minute. Again, that's all just the strength training, not necessarily you didn't really make a ton of changes to his to your training, you know, but more of that you made changes with just adding back in the supplements. So we can see that there wasn't a huge change there, and actually at the same wattage, you know, so he was at 160 watts before and he was at 160 watts on today's test. The next number that we talk about is that lactate threshold. Before, when he was in last time, his lactate threshold, he was at 182 beats per minute at 220 watts. Again, he's done 0 high intensity since that day. So his lactate threshold, I mean, it's very close to being about the same. He was at 178 beats per minute at 220, so at the same wattage. Hit his LT at just a little bit lower heart rate, but still knowing that you didn't do, you know, we really weren't focused on the exercise component of this, so I would imagine that those numbers would be exactly the same. Okay. The next number that we look at is that Vo2 Max. So his Vo2 Max, last time, he actually achieved it at a heart rate of 188 beats per minute, and today he achieved it at 188 beats per minute. The real big change, though, was that before he hit it, his VO2, he was only putting out 250 watts, and today he was putting out 310 watts at his VO2. So that's a massive increase in wattage. But the really cool component of this is that his relative VO2, which is measured in milliliters per kilogram per minute, which takes his body weight into the equation. So Jason's body weight from test 1 to test 2 didn't change. He was at 180 pounds both times. So what we would normally see is that if he came back in and he had lost weight, we would usually see that VO2 had gone up just because he's lost weight, his relative VO2. So the number that we would actually focus on would be absolute VO2. Absolute VO2, you can see, is measured in liters per minute. It takes body weight out of the equation. So now we are able to compare apples to apples. We're not worried about did his weight fluctuate at all. We're just looking at how well is he able to consume and utilize oxygen, right? So how well is he taking in that oxygen and how well is it working in his body, in his cells? And we know that having a higher Vo2 max is directly correlated with a lower chance of developing cardiovascular disease. So when we test and we work with kids, we know that Vo2 will go up 10 to 15%, but typically as we age, Vo2 usually begins to drop, or even small changes in Vo2 we say are really, really big, massive, right? So as you can see, Jason's Vo2 his relative Vo2 went up from a 41.9 to a 46.9. So that's a huge increase. But the number that I'm really looking at is how much did his absolute Vo2 go up? And it actually went from 3.42 to 3.83. That's a huge increase. And we're talking in only 2 weeks' time. And the only change that we made was adding back in the Xendurance supplements. And so that alone right there in all of this is massive. That's a massive, massive gain.
One message I want to put out there right now, like what I'm feeling right now, is we're really humble about how we go about our business at Xendurance, but there's companies that market their brands as built for performance. Really look into that company and look at if there's true clinical studies on not just one ingredient that's clinically proven, like protein. We know it's clinically proven, but is that whole formula proven to do something for your body? You know, a lot of these companies have great marketing, big YouTube channels, great social media presence, but are they really building products that are built to perform or human performance? And I think we have taken the years and the necessary time to prove to everyone that our products work, and not just for athletes, it's for just better human performance.